This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm back here in the studio working on some new solo shows. We are looking to actually intermix between guests some solo shows. We're getting, or at least I'm getting, a number of emails for people around specific questions, skills, thoughts, those types of things. And normally I'll reply back to those of you who send me an email directly, but we're actually going to turn some of those into what we refer to as solo shows. And what do we mean by a solo show is basically it's just me and you having a conversation, and where I can share with you answers to your questions or topics or things that are important for success when working in the innovation space or coming up with new ideas. So this week's show is around innovation skills. So if you were to collect up kind of the core set of skills that you needed to have to be successful, to be able to be highly creative, to generate those ideas that create those new products and services that allow you to win in whatever it is you're doing, whether that's a for-profit business, a nonprofit, NGO, government agency, small business, large business, U.S.-based, global, multinationals, or a small operator in someplace else in the world. The skill sets are the same. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's show, which is, what are these skill sets? The number one skill set, and I know I've talked about this a lot, and that is you got to have self-confidence. Self-confidence that you are creative. I'm amazed by how many people do not think of themselves as being highly creative. They think it's somebody else's job. My biggest proof point of this is my grandkids. You know, I have 5. The oldest is 7 as of the recording of this episode, down to 3. And, I sit there and I watch how they make things up, and, fictional characters or the noises of their little Matchbox cars going across the floor. Probably the best poster child of the example is the use of toilet paper rolls. Take an empty toilet paper roll and watch, a kid that's 5, 6 years old, how many different ways they can turn that into a toy. And I'm just absolutely amazed. And I guess my frustration around this particular skill is I would argue, and there's been some books written about this by other leading thinkers in the space around creativity, around the negative impact that education has on creativity. If you go into a kindergarten class and ask them, sing me a new song, show me some artwork, you absolutely get flooded with every kid in the kindergarten class wanting to show you something. And now ask that question every year up through high school, and it's fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. We teach conformity. We teach this, you must, dress the same, act the same. You don't want to stand out. And then you get in through college, and it's all about getting the grade, doing the test. And now to get into the business world, the number one skill set that's ranked by CEOs when they're recruiting for their top talent is what? It's creativity. They are recruiting creativity, the ability to hire somebody who is going to be a catalyst for new ideas that's going to ensure the long-term success of the organization. It's all about creativity. So here we go. We take somebody that we are all naturally born highly creative, beat it out of them, graduate them, tell them to go get a job, and then we ask them to think differently. Don't think like everybody else. Be different. Be a nonconformist. Versus we've just spent the last 16 plus years beating them into submission. This flips into, really this need of bravery as another skill set. Now, the opposite of bravery is not cowardice. The opposite of bravery is conformity, and it ties into this. You need to have the self-confidence that you are creative. That's a skill. It's a mindset. But just because you think it, you have to be brave. You have to go out and apply it. You got to go do something with it. You just cannot, sit back and think about, in your head and not share your ideas, contribute your ideas, encourage others with their own ideas, pull together teams to develop and build upon each other's ideas. That takes bravery. And remember, as I said before, the opposite of bravery is not cowardice. The opposite of bravery, especially when it comes to innovation bravery, is conformity. Getting comfortable that you don't have to look, act, sound, think, and behave like everybody else, that you can go out and strike out and try something new, take some risks, try something that you haven't done before. And this ties into, another part of bravery is what holds us back is that fear of failure. The fear that I'm going to go out and try something new and I am just going to be face down in the dirt. It is going to absolutely blow up in my face. And that ties to the bravery. You can be a lot more brave when you're comfortable with the fact that you have permission to go try something new, do it, experiment with it. If it doesn't work out, figure it out early, stop it, and then go off and try something different. If you're a leader in an organization, you need to go give permission to your people to go try, to go experiment, and not have that fear that if it doesn't work out, that it's not gonna, that there's gonna be some kind of a ramification for failure. So again, number one, everyone's creative. Get that in your head. It's an attitude. It's a mental acknowledgement that we are all naturally born creative. Bravery from the standpoint of if you've got it in your head that you know that you're creative, you need to be brave to go try something, go do something. Don't get caught up in thinking about, well, what would people think? And, this is not how we do things. It's not how everybody, contributes or participates or, I'm the junior person on the list and I'm not going to pipe up in a meeting. So again, everybody's creative. You need to be brave. You need to get over that fear of failure to be brave. And then another key skill set is seeing with fresh eyes. What do I mean by seeing with fresh eyes? For those of us that have been experts in an area of our career, we've been in a single industry or we're a really good software engineering resource or done a lot of product design, whatever your area of expertise, that every year of expertise makes your ability to see new things harder and harder, becomes much more narrower. There's a Zen Buddhism term that I love, and it's called Shoshin, Shoshin, Shoshin. Shoshin means beginner's mind. It's not so much of that you see things differently, but it's an attitude of openness. It's a lack of preconceptions. It truly is as you look at everything as if you were seeing it for the first time, even though this may be the 50th project that you've done, but you are looking at it with this beginner's mind, with Shoshin. Think about it in this context. At the beginner's mind, there are many possible answers, many possible ways that you can take this project or idea forward. With an expert's mind, there are few opportunities, few possibilities, because you see the path and you are going to execute the one path. And Shoshin is hard. It is incredibly hard. But I've run into this all the time where I see people who are experts in a field who want to, become part of a team to develop something new, and they immediately are throwing in their expertise. Oh, it's been tried. for the last decade, people have been trying to solve that problem, or this is my area of expertise. That approach won't work. This is the only path forward. And so, a key skill, if you are to be successful in developing ideas that become breakthrough products and services, is seeing with fresh eyes, having that beginner's mind, to be able to put yourself into that approach of Shoshin, where you are the beginner's mind with many possibilities, and you avoid getting caught in the trap of that expert's mind, where there are fewer opportunities, fewer possibilities. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back, continuing our conversation on the 6 innovation skills everyone needs. Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation today on the 6 innovation skills everyone needs. What I want to talk about in this segment is our ability to craft and ask really great questions. Questions have a very unique power. Questions literally force you to stop what you're doing, craft an answer, and then you can go back to thinking whatever it is you're thinking about. Now, there are all kinds of different questions. There are simple yes-no questions. Did you take the trash out today? Yes or no. Did you complete your homework? Yes or no. There are also what we call leading questions, meaning you craft the question in such a way that you're leading the person to the answer. So, for example, hey, Joe, we are going to make that new laptop blue, correct? It's a leading question. Joe's smart. What's his answer going to be? Yeah, boss, sure, we're going to make this laptop blue. Then there are questions that you craft in such a way that it forces people to look at the problem in a way that they had just never, ever considered. And that becomes a pretty interesting approach to think about how do you craft those. So, in fact, when I was first coming to take over the new CEO position at Cable Labs, part of the task or part of the challenges I had was to deal with the fact that I'd never had any interaction with the organization. So how do I then go about the process of discovering, right? Well, what did I do? I crafted questions. I asked everybody, staff, my board of directors, and my the vendor community that worked with us, the same 4 questions. Question number 1, what do we do well? What should we keep doing? Now, question number 2, what do we do that just is we don't do very well or is just totally annoying and that we should stop doing? The number 3 question is I'm the new guy. What is it you most hope I do? And then the 4th question, I'm the new guy. What are you most afraid I might do? And that 4th question caught everybody off guard. They didn't have time to do kind of a pre-canned answer. They literally gave you an answer right off the cuff. And it was the most insightful. It caused them to look at the situation. I'm the new guy coming in. I've been recruited to be the CEO, right? And everybody's got fears. If you're an employee, is this guy a jerk? Is he going to fire everybody? What's his modus operandi here inside the organization? If you're the board of directors, our biggest fear is he's going to come in and tank the organization. If you're a vendor, everybody had a fear. Getting them to extract that fear so that you can have that input, critical, absolutely critical. But those are the 4 questions I crafted to ask in order to gain some form of unique insight. In the case of an innovation skill, your ability to conceive, develop, and come up with questions are absolutely going to be important for you to derive, to gather input from your team, from potential beneficiaries of your idea, whether that's a you're trying to create a new product or a new service or a new capability, you need to get input. And you need to think and spend more time crafting those kinds of questions. Here, let me give you another example. There's a question, I've asked this 1,000 times in workshops, done it many times on the show, so bear with me. If I ask you to answer the question, what is half of 13? What do you come back with? 6.5. If this was a math test, I'd give you an A. If this was an innovation test, probably give you a C-. Why? Because you stopped at the first obvious answer. Now, if I reword that question slightly and I ask, how many different ways can you convey half of 13? Right? Now think about it. You're off now in a bunch of different ways. If I'd written the word 13 out, so it's THIRTEEN, then I would split the word. So the first word would be THIR, the second word would be TEEN. If I wrote the number 13, 1 and 3, and split it vertically, it's 1 and 3. If I did it as Roman numeral 13 and split it vertically, it's 11 and 2. If I split it horizontally, it's Roman numeral 8 and 8. There's 13 cards in a deck of cards. What's the middle card? Right? That's half, quote, half, right? So how many different ways could you craft what is half of 13? Now, to help out, I've developed a set of questions over many years, and we're now in season 15 of the show. So if you go back into maybe the first 5 years of the show, from 2005, 2010, used to have a segment in the show where I would share one of the killer questions, one of the questions I've used in a workshop. You can find the entire, well, I should not say the entire list, because there's probably 150 questions now that I've collected up. There's 48 of the better ones that are in the book, Beyond the Obvious. And there's also the killer question card deck, which if you're interested, you can hop on over to innovation.tools and find it and purchase it. And you can use those cards in your workshops and brainstorming sessions or just on your own trying to come up with new ideas for products and services. But do not limit yourself to my questions. Those are my questions. They work for me. I've used them in my workshops. Now, many people buy them and use them and get great benefit from it. But what the skill set you need to have is coming up with your own questions or collecting questions. If you're reading a book and someone asks a really clever question in a book, write it down, collect them, reword them, tweak them. Right? I've got a notebook now. I'm collecting questions for when I interview guests. Right? And some of those questions have turned out to be really insightful. For instance, I'll ask the question, what are you curious about? What is the thing that's got your curiosity piqued right now? And for a lot of people, that kind of throws them for a loop. It's not something they shared. Maybe they're just early phases of thinking about something. But when they share that, it gives you some insight. It may open your eyes to an area that you haven't even known about, and it piques your curiosity. The power of questions is absolutely a critical skill in the game of innovation, because it's through questions that you look at problems, look at opportunities, look and discover ideas that you would have never have considered if the questions are well crafted. So, questions, key skill, you need to have it. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break. So what skills do you think you need to have in order to be successful in the innovation game? We've covered a few. One skill that I think gets overlooked a lot is our ability to deal with people who are negative against our ideas. These are the naysayers. These are the people who like to throw rocks. These are the people who spend a lot of time trying to explain to you why your idea will not work. I have a term for them. Those are the innovation antibodies. So what's an antibody? An antibody is if you get an infection in your body, you cut your finger and you get an infection in that incision area or where you cut yourself. Your antibodies are the things that attack that infection to knock it down so it doesn't cause you more harm, right? That's what an antibody is in the innovation game. They see your idea as a threat. You're going to make them do something different. They're going to have to come up with some new product that you want to get implemented, or whatever it is, change a process inside. They see you as a threat. They have an antibody reaction, and it's an antibody reaction to your innovation, to your idea. So how do you deal with that? You're going to run into it. Let me just be clear here. It doesn't matter whether you're in a 3-person startup or, in my case, at a 240,000 employees in 168 countries. You are going to have to fight the innovation antibodies. And this is a skill you need to have. And that is absolutely, absolutely critical. So how do you know you've got an innovation antibody that you've got to deal with? Well, the way to do that is really, based on the questions or the comments. So let me just run through a quick list here. See if you've heard any of these. For example, let's shelve that for the time being. Or the question of, okay, great idea, who's going to do it? Or I have something better. Or we tried it before. Or it won't fit into the way we operate. There's not enough return on investment. I love that one. It's great, but they throw in their own idea. Oh, someone must have tried it before. Oh, I thought of that a long time ago. Oh, we can't afford that. Oh, you'll never get approval. You're on the wrong track. I'm the expert. Don't rock the boat. Everything is fine. The market is not ready for that. It's not a new concept. You think it's new? It's not new. Or the last one, another one that I love, is we are legally obligated to follow these rules. We can't do your idea because we legally cannot do that. So we've all heard them. I've heard them 1,000 times. So how do you break down to the types of antibodies that you have to deal with? There are basically 4 types: the ego response, the fatigue response, the no-risk response, and the comfort response. Now, I'm going to go through these relatively quickly in today's show, but if you're interested, there's actually been previous shows. I've gone through these antibodies a lot in the past, so if you want to dig in, if this is an area of interest for you, just go back into the show archives over at Killer Innovations, search for antibodies or innovation antibodies, and all of the shows will show up. You can download the episodes and listen to them to dig into this one a little bit differently. But real quick, the innovation or the ego response innovation antibodies. So the ego response category are those people who are threatened because your idea is something that they think they should have come up with. In a high-tech firm like Hewlett-Packard, typically the people who come up with the ego response are the technology leaders, the product leaders, the managers, directors, VPs, because in many cases they think it's their job to be the one to come up with the ideas, and the rest of the people on their team's job is to execute their ideas. If you come up with the idea, it's an ego response because they have this impression that you're trying to make them look bad, right? The way to get around that really quick is just to take your idea in a very draft form, very early in the concept phase, and solicit their input and thoughts, just one-on-one. And whatever ideas or suggestions they give you, include it. Because if they see their own input being included, then part of that product is theirs now. Part of that idea is their idea. Share the credit, share the work. So that's one way to get around the ego response. And there's a lot of different ways. Again, go over into the archive and listen to some of the other responses. The fatigue response. This is typically those people who will say, ooh, I've tried that before, or I've tried to get approval for ideas like that, and I never could get approval. These are the people who've run against the wall, smack their head, fall down, get up, try to run against the wall again. Best way to get around them is treat them as an advisor. Ask them, hey, what did you try before? And why do you think it did not get approval? And what advice would you give me on doing it a different way in order to get approval for the idea that I'm working on? Number 3, the no risk response. The no risk response, those are the people who the comment you'll hear is, oh, don't rock the boat. Everything is great. Everything is going, up and comfortable, right? So why do we have to take any kind of a risk? Well, let's not make that risk. That's too risky. You're going to upset the what's going on here. The no risk response typically comes from chief financial officers and general counsels. These are the people who, in effect, get paid to manage risk, right? So, hey, everything's fine. We don't need to go crazy on some edge case because that's just too risky for us. The best way to get around that is empathize with the risk. Understand it's their job. They're not bad people, but they're getting paid to manage the risk. So include them in the conversation. Manage the project in a way that you take the risk seriously. Do stage gate funding, spend only $25,000 in the first phase. Prove it out, go to these people, show them that you're managing the risk appropriately. You're asking good questions to make sure that the project, can be successful before you put more money into it. You need to manage the risk as seriously as they do, even though it's their full-time job. The 4th is the comfort response. These are the people who's like, hey, revenue and margin's great. We're cooking it here. We don't need to do anything new. We don't need to come up with something new. The comfort response is the hardest one to get people around. And that is because they don't see a reason to change. But in reality, if you don't change, you become roadkill. My general rule of thumb is I don't care what process or approach or direction any organization that I've been leading is heading. About every 3 to 4 years, we take a big step back and really challenge ourselves to look at everything differently, think about everything differently, change things up, actually stop doing some things and continuing on doing other things. And this may sound crazy, but we may actually even stop things that are actually going okay. Not great, but maybe okay, right? Because if you don't create breathing room, if you don't take things off people's plate, you can't try new things. And if you are a highly successful organization, you got a lot of things that are going on that are doing really, really well. Sometimes you just got to stop them in order to create breathing room to try new things, try new approaches. Comfort response, you almost have to create a crisis. You almost have to show people that things, if we stay on the current path, it may be good now, but it's not going to be good forever. So that's the important part. So again, part of the innovation skill set is dealing with the innovation antibody types: ego response, fatigue response, no risk, comfort. And again, I'll say it one more time, if you're interested in getting into this in more detail, hop on over to killerinnovations.com and look through the archive, and you can find more information about that. But here's the closing 2 questions I want to ask you real quick before we hop out to break. Do you know someone who's an innovation antibody in your organization? Be honest. Who would you point to as your innovation antibody, and what category would you put them in? Now, here's the really important question. Would others call you an innovation antibody? Would they call you one? And if so, what type are you? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back. We're wrapping up today's show talking about innovation skills. What are those skills everyone needs to have in order to really be successful? We've covered a bunch. We've got one key one that I want to cover before we wrap up today's show. And that is around, I don't know what I want to call it, innovation attitude, innovation culture. It applies both to you as an individual, but also a team or organization. So apply it as appropriate given what situation you are in. And it's based on a term that I used called CARE, C-A-R-E. And this is really the key. If you think about pulling people together or you yourself having the attitude to push yourself to develop new ideas. And what do I mean by CARE? First off, the C stands for candor. And candor is really freely and ardently share creative thoughts and ideas. Don't sit back and think, I got this really good idea in my head, or I've written that idea in my idea notebook. Candor. Share your creative thoughts and ideas. And appreciate the candor that positively impacts ideas and innovations. Be respectful, but be honest. Encourage candor amongst yourself. One, you've got an idea. You need to have candor to share that idea, to push it out there, and to get others to provide feedback on it. Yes, you are even inviting them to act as the innovation antibody on your ideas. At the same time, when other people in the organization have candor and they are sharing that with you, they're sharing their ideas, their innovations, or feedback on you, on your idea, have respect, be honest, have a candid conversation. If you don't, and everybody's kind of in their own little corner, their own little niche, and scribbling in their idea notebook, wow, I got all these really good ideas in my notebook. Guess what? The value of those ideas is zero. Unless an idea gets made real and turns into an innovation, the value is zero. Candor. Freely and ardently share your creative thoughts and your ideas with others. The A in CARE stands for action. Again, candor is talking about it. Action is act on the ideas. Act on ideas that will impact the organization. Take charge to enable progress, right? Don't be playing the lean back mode, the lean in. It's an innovation skill that is harder to find than it should be. An organization is trying to encourage staff to come up with ideas, and people are willing to, send off an email or maybe submit an idea to a digital suggestion box. Who's going to take the action? Even if it's not your idea, if you see an idea that's really good, that can have an impact, take action. Act on ideas that'll positively impact the organization. Take charge to enable progress. Provide and enable solutions to the issues, big and small. An idea trying to get traction is going to run into roadblocks. Play the role of getting rid of the roadblocks. Action says you would do anything to move this idea forward, to make progress, and to have that positive impact. The third in CARE is R, risk. Understand the uncertainty and the risk associated with trying new ideas, and take calculated risks to break barriers, real or perceived. And trust me, I shouldn't say most, I guess, I'm probably over-exaggerating here, but there are a lot of perceived risks that are just not real. Go back to a term that I used in my TED Talk. You can go over to TED and find my TED Talk. I talk about fear, false evidence that appears real. False evidence that appears real. F-E-A-R. And in the case of risk, we have these perceived risks that are not real. Frame and quickly learn from your experiments and then go back and try again. So again, risk. Understand the uncertainty and the risk associated with being innovative, and take calculated risks. Don't let risk be that closing the door. Find a way to manage that risk and push forward. And then the E in care is empowered. Entrust both yourself and others to lead these endeavors, to make a difference. Feel like you're empowered. Don't wait for final permission. In fact, I remember an event I was holding back at HP again, in HP Labs, in fact, talking about innovation and creativity, and somebody who was a researcher in the labs raised their hand and said, yeah, but Phil, this is great, but I don't have permission from my manager. And I did the great Moses standing up, parting the waters, and said in my deepest voice, "You now have permission to innovate." And I was shocked by just making that kind of comical, turning into a little fun thing, but actually saying the words, "You have permission," changed an entire attitude of a team. Feel empowered, empower others, encourage your leaders to empower people. If you don't, your organization, your teams will not be successful. So again, the key to innovation success, a key skill is to have care, candor, action, risk, empowered. So let me run through again the 6 innovation skills that we've covered in today's show. Number 1, you are creative. You are. Number 2 is to have bravery. Don't let that fear of failure. Be brave. Remember, the opposite of bravery is not cowardice. The opposite of bravery is conformity. The third skill, fresh eyes. Got to have fresh eyes. Number 4, have the skill of creating really good questions, crafting and leveraging the power of questions to uncover new ideas, new opportunities. Number 5, dealing with the innovation antibodies. You have to have that skill to get those antibodies out of the way in order to be successful. And then the last one, number 6, is you need to have that innovation attitude. You need to have that culture, and it's all around care. With that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Check out the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. Love to hear from you. Drop me a note, phil@killerinnovations.com, or hop over to the innovators.community. That's where I hang out. Love to chat with you. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.